get so tight that they become really quite hard as a rock. So just as a follow-up to the stages of clay, I do want to really quickly discuss what happens after we're finished sculpting a piece. Clay goes from being very fresh, starts to dry out, gets leather hard, you can still sort of work with it. Eventually it becomes so dry that it becomes bone dry, and that becomes greenware. That greenware then goes through a process called firing. So we would say we would fire the piece. It goes into a kiln, gets heated up to about 1800 degrees, 2000 degrees, depending on the clay, depending on what you are doing with it. But the general idea is that it takes all the moisture out of that piece and it becomes bisqueware. Bisqueware is a piece of work, whether it's pottery, whether it's sculpture, that is clay, and it's been fired and all the moisture is out and all those particles that we talked about earlier get so tight that they become really quite hard as a rock. From that point, you can do a few things with it. You can just keep it like raw clay, raw bisqueware, or you can glaze it or fire it. Wait, let's start over. So the samples I have here are pieces that have been painted, glazed, and one that has absolutely nothing done to it after it's been fired. Okay? After it's been fired, it becomes bisqueware. How do you know it's bisqueware? Well, it does a few things. One, it changes color, it shrinks a little bit, and if you do that, it has more of a clinky sound. And even on a piece that's been fired and painted, right, it's kind of like a bell because it's nice and hollow. We'll get to why it's hollow soon enough. Okay? But if you paint it, that's it. It's done. Right? There's not much else you can do to it. You can repaint it as many times as you want. No problem about that. The other thing you can do with it is called glazing. Now, glazing is a process of putting more chemicals or pigments or basically pulverized rocks and engobes and stuff. It's not really super important what it is because but the idea behind glazing a piece is that you put it back in the kiln and the heat creates a chemical process to bind those particles together and basically forms this glassy surface on it. Like literally it becomes glass. And so different glazes, different chemical compounds will turn different colors and they will react to the clay differently. And so the idea behind glazing is that it actually is quite chemically based. That is a weird way of saying that there's a lot of chemistry involved in ceramics. Unfortunately, we don't have the real option of going through that in this environment, but it is a pretty big part of ceramics and it can't be ignored. All right? So once again, just real quick overview of stages of clay. You have fresh clay. Turns harder as it turns leather. As it dries out, it becomes bone dry. That bone dry piece is greenware. It goes through a fire, it becomes bisqueware. This stuff, you know, ventriculized clay. At that point, you have a choice. You can glaze it or you can paint it. If you paint it, that's it. You know, you can use different kinds of paints. And then if you do a glazing, you have to refire it to basically have that chemical reaction form on the piece. Right? So it's just the process of ceramics.